Okay, thanks everyone for joining us on KRTD Chat today. Here with us today we have Delilah. How do I pronounce your last name?
Barrios.
We have Delilah Barrios. Who is running for governor of Texas. So I wanted to go through your platform with you. So you want to go ahead and tell everyone. Well, before that, why did you decide to run?
Well, that's a good question. I decided to run for a few reasons. One being that I'm a medical worker and I have seen and heard the stories of patients that are just in this position that they can't afford the surgery that they need or the care that they need, and it's actually gotten to a point where it hurts a bit to know that people are more concerned with how they're going to afford their bill than how they're going to heal. So one reason is that. Two, I'm a mother, and I'm an environmental activist. I have been for a very long time. And I am doing this out of a deep concern for our environment and potential future, you know what I mean, that we're leaving our next generations. So those are the two main reasons why I decided to run. I think we just need better representation in Texas, you know?
Absolutely. So the first thing on your platform is Medicare for y'all, is the way you put it on your website.
Yep. It's Medicare for all y'all. So I just, Texas is one of the most underinsured and uninsured states. We have a large population here of people who do not have coverage. And I want, one of the most important things for me is to make sure that people have health care. I think it's a human right, and that's why that's why we called it Medicare for all y'all, because it includes everybody.
Are you in favor of, there's a bunch of activist groups right now, specifically in Washington, trying to do state-based, trying to do this through the states. Are you in favor of attempting that in Texas if you were to become governor?
Yes, absolutely. Statewide single payer is the plan. And we hosted Medicare for All March a few months ago, just trying to get our name out there and letting people know that that's definitely something that we stand for.
Definitely. So, are you familiar at all with the state-based plans?
With what?
The state-based single-payer plans.
You know what? We don't have a lot of success stories right now. The most recent that I've heard of was Vermont, that didn't actually ever get started. So, I'm familiar with how creative people have to be to pay for it, and I think that we could come up with something really helpful for our state specifically. And a lot of the money that we get, federal money, goes straight to the fossil fuel industry in our state, and they're responsible for contaminating water sources and destroying natural habitats. So I mean, for me it's a clear indicator that we're just not spending our money properly on the people as we should.
Absolutely. So right now, Vermont is the one. Washington is trying something now. They have a group called Whole Washington.
Yeah.
And they're working with the activists at Red Berets, and they want to do state-based, but it's a little bit difficult there. I'm not sure what the laws are there, but they can't raise taxes on anybody's income. They have certain laws that don't allow for wealth tax.
Right.
Are you guys in Texas able to do wealth tax at the state level?
It's something that I don't think has been tried before. So I do believe the possibility is there. I think we would just have to be a little bit more creative. As I mentioned before, I think corporate tax would be the best angle, because we have a lot of large corporations who have their hubs here in our state and move here because they appreciate the low taxes that we offer here. But I just, my hope would be to bring some income and revenue from them.
Absolutely. So another thing you have on your plan is the basic income guarantee. What exactly is that?
So again, we have a lot of people living in poverty in this state. I don't know if you've heard, but also we've got like a large homeless population of Boston, and there's been a lot of like local legislation about that specifically. And we have very stagnant minimum wages in the state. So my idea is just to offer. We have to change what the poverty rate is, first of all. That's unlivable when you actually look at it and what it means for families to try and survive off something like $20,000 a year or something like that. It's insane. So we have to change that, and then hopefully, as we process to a higher minimum wage, we can offer benefits to people and extra income for them who are suffering. You know, we have a lot of farmers who are losing their farmland because they don't make enough, and so not enough. You know, they sell their property; it's held by investors, and you know, nothing good for the economy actually comes from that. We don't. You know, we're losing on great agricultural land, farmers, ranchers. We need to keep those people here, and we need to keep them as private landowners to help, you know, the environment, help us, you know, get back on our feet.
Definitely. And the big one I want to ask you about is Texas recently passed those horrible abortion laws, allowing people to sue, and you can sue this one for that, and it just turns everyone into mercenaries, essentially.
Yes.
To get money. So, do you have anything in your platform in regards to that?
Absolutely. So, yeah, and if you want to check out our website, delilahfortexas.com is our newest page that we have been working on recently. So, as far as the SB 8 6-week abortion ban that is in effect in Texas right now, that would be gone. There would be no laws that would limit anybody from acquiring the medical attention that they need. We would not have all of these aggressive legislation against women and minorities and people who are pregnant, people that are needing family planning services. We would not have any laws in that state that would hold up in court. Like, those would all go away because it's your right to choose, you know what I mean, what health plan, what medical procedures you need. And there's no reason why we should be infringing on people's rights that way. So I would not, there would be no such thing as abortion bans in Texas anymore.
Definitely. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, and you have something about dealing with the corruption of the oil and gas industry. Have you considered doing something similar to what Alaska has done? They give people money every month from the oil and from the oil profits.
No, I think that that's actually in the long run a really insane idea. Because you're just further keeping your population beholden to the oil and gas industry, and they can manipulate as they see fit, which is that's not helpful. That in fact seems limiting to people's rights. So that's not anything I would consider.
No.
Nope.
So what would you do to deal with the corruption of these companies in that case?
Well, as we mentioned before about a corporate tax, so first of all, halt all fossil fuel subsidies completely. So anything having to do with oil and gas, they're not going to get all of their federal handouts anymore.
Well, you'd only to do that on the state level as governor.
Yes.
You'd only be able to take away their state subsidies. You wouldn't.
Yes, and there's quite a bit in Texas to work with. So,
sure.
Yeah, we're one of the biggest oil states. You know, there's drilling all over our coastline, all over our state, and they cause so much damage. I mean, and we keep enabling that with the handouts. So that would stop.
Would you be in favor of the government nationalizing the oil and gas industry, allowing pretty much everyone there to keep their jobs and managing the decline of that industry while we transition over?
I think as far as jobs are concerned, there should be plenty of new jobs in the energy sector once
Well, of
we.
course. Well, what I was saying is allow them to keep their jobs while we're transitioning and then give them the new jobs after the transition.
Yeah, I think obviously a transition from so much oil use to things like wind, solar, other we've got turbines and things like that we can use. There would be benefit, like you wouldn't need the job because you would have an income while you're waiting for the sectors to open up those jobs for you. So, like we're not going to leave people in a lurch. We're not just going to say, oh, you work for the oil and gas industry. You don't have a place, in our future. That's completely wrong. We would never do something like that.
No, but certain parts of that industry are going to take a longer time to transition over. For example, a lot of cars take gas, so you're going to have to keep some part of the industry alive, at least for a little while, until those are all transitioned over.
Yeah, and one of the most important things that I think we need to do is make all of our utilities publicly owned. So publicly owned utilities, people can vote on where they want things to be coming from and how much, energy is being used, and it's a lot better for everybody if it's publicly owned. So that would be the first step in our plan, trying to, make Texas green.
Now, Texas already has a lot of wind power,
yes,
to my knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
What about solar energy?
Yeah, we're lagging a bit behind on solar, which doesn't make a lot of sense. So we would need to do more of that. And honestly, we're not doing enough because of the offshore drilling. We're really not doing enough with the ocean turbines and things like that we could use to create more energy. There's all of these oil rigs in the oceans, and they control areas. So, it'd be lovely to cap those off and start focusing on green energy.
Definitely. So when you say publicly owned utilities, you mean that I, as a member of the public, I own the solar utilities, I own the gas, not me, only me. I own a piece of every version of energy publicly.
Right, like you would have a say. So where I live, I'm under a co-op energy utility provider. And so we have the ability to vote and try and do measures to keep our costs down and invest, decide where we want the money to be invested better. So I think publicly owned would be a good step in opening people's eyes to the possibility of having your fuel and your energy coming from other sources.
So we would be able to vote, let's say, for the green energy on how much we're paying or where we get the water from in my state. I'd be able to, or in your state, for your people would be able to vote.
So water as a utility is a little bit different. Right. And I would obviously want to make water a public utility as well. But there's limits. So like you pay for your water and you pay for your energy and your utility. And through that gives you the benefit of kind of like being like a co-op, like you have a say, you get to benefit from it, and we all kind of share how it gets distributed,
I'm assuming your plan would be for all utilities, but you would encourage for most the use of green utilities wherever possible.
Yes, we would absolutely. We would do everything in our power to incentivize using green energy. And in fact, when we had the winter storm, there was a lot of media going about saying that our wind turbines froze, and that was the reason why so many people lost power. And mind you, like about 200 people that we know of died during that time, which is nothing compared to the pandemic. But I think what's important is to realize that solar and especially wind picked up most of the slack to keep a lot of those facilities running. If they did not have those other sources of energy, then more people would have been without power and suffered during that time.
Definitely. Now, would you be in favor of, now, electric cars tend to be very expensive. The only ones that we have seem to be from Tesla, and they seem to overcharge a lot because that guy just wants to make some money. It's not really about electric cars. So would you be in favor of, if there's a way to convert older cars to becoming electric, allowing people to do that and letting the government pay for that, letting the government do some research on converting old cars to electric, and then letting the government pay for that so people can transition their own cars over so they don't have to use gas. Because people won't be able to put $5,000 out of pocket or $30,000 out of pocket if that was a possibility. But if the government paid for it, maybe people would consider doing it.
You know, that is a really tricky area, especially for a state as big as Texas. We have a lot of constituents who are, of course, very concerned with individual rights, and a lot of people who are rural and they live far away from stores and hospitals and things like that. So one thing that we are seriously lacking is a very comprehensive public transport system in the state. And so my hope would be that we could put some green energy down, some rail, things like that, to help people rely less on their vehicles rather than pay to change over something like your own personal vehicle. You know, a lot of the older models of vehicles are made with heavier metals, and they're not equipped to be electric. Yeah. They're just the technology isn't compatible with some of those things. So I just, you know, we probably prefer, if people wanted to open up and do investments into the biofuel industry, that's also a possibility that is less has less greenhouse emissions than you know, regular oil and gas.
So that might be a way to transition over. Yes. It's not going to be a perfect way, but it's not perfect. There'll be greenhouse emissions, but it'll be less so.
And with the public transport, you would hope that people would be spending less time commuting and using their cars for things like that. They would be able to have an option. And that with that option, we're hoping it will have less people on the roads, you know?
Well, sometimes that works out. No, that doesn't. I'm in New York City. We have probably the best, I don't want to brag, we probably have the best public transport system in the country. Because in New York, you can go anywhere and you can hop a bus or a train. It's not the greenest. And they're working on converting it. But the thing about it is it's connected. Everything is connected in the entire city. And then the city is connected to the state. And you can go anywhere via public transport. But we still have a lot of people driving cars. But we do have less people driving cars than other states.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to explain to people how massive Texas is and how crazy it is that we don't have something like that. Because we have a lot of meccas and big, you know, cities where there's a lot of good paying jobs and people are driving, you know, hour or more just to get to their job every day. And it's like, that is completely unnecessary. We could do so much better for the state.
Definitely. Now, when it comes to the state, of course, it would be good to have more public transport. Are you in favor of the plan for the high-speed rail to connect the entire country together?
You know, I think that would be a really beautiful thing, and I would honestly love to see something like that go internationally. You know, Texas is right on the border, and we do a lot of trade, and we've got a lot of people working, you know, who work and live part-time in Texas and work and live part-time across in Mexico. And I think it would be ideal to offer that kind of system. You know what I mean? Both nationally and internationally.
Well, that would have to be a project that countries come together on.
That's true. It would have to be a good faith agreement, and I don't see that happening right now with our current elected officials. But I think that with the right person, a good bargain could be made, because we do rely a lot on our neighbor country for produce and meat and other things like that. So it's important to have those strong business relationships as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, hold on. So, want to ask you a question here. You have legalizing just marijuana. You have legalizing recreational marijuana. So, if you want to talk about that for a second, I'm going to pull up a clip here.
Okay.
So, I'm going to pull up a clip here. So this is maybe an unpopular opinion. I want to see what you think about this, because you're in favor of legalizing marijuana. This is not unpopular, but you'll see what I mean. Hold on a second here. So I'm going to play a clip here. Hang on, I just got to set up the screen for this. And I want to get your kind of reaction to this. This is an independent media guy. This is Kyle Kolinsky. He's not sure. Can you see this? Can you hear it?
Yeah, I can see it. Mm-hmm.
So I want to see what you think about this.
This one you all knew was coming. Drugs. What's my take on drugs? Legalize, tax, and regulate drugs. Now, a lot hinges on that last word, regulation. It is not so clear. It is not so straightforward. How you regulate. There's going to be a lot of debate. There's going to be a lot of wiggle room. There's going to be a lot of different interpretations as to how you do that. But my general feeling is lean on the side of freedom and liberty as much as possible while still doing some basic bare minimum regulation. So, am I going to legalize fentanyl? What's basically a horse tranquilizer where it could kill you if you take the tiniest amount? No, I'm not. Will I legalize other opiates or opioids, though, that people can get over the counter? Yes. I think the reason why this is an unpopular take of mine is that the rest of the country hasn't caught up yet. The country's caught up on marijuana, where everybody says, yeah, legalize that one. That one's fine. The country's caught up on maybe some psychedelics. Okay, you could legalize some of those or decriminalize those. That's fine. The country definitely hasn't caught up on uppers, on downers, on cocaine, on things of that nature. They think, well, certain drugs are just too dangerous and other drugs are not that dangerous, and so keep the really dangerous ones banned and keep the the not dangerous ones decriminalized or legal. My take on it is you should basically take the safest version of all different kinds of drugs and legalize, tax, and regulate it, and it can even be commercialized. That's probably my biggest difference with even other lefties, where many lefties would say decriminalize all of them, but only legalize the safe ones. I say legalize the safe-ish versions of all of the drugs and even allow them to be commercialized where companies can sell them, jobs can be created as a result of them. So it's not just decriminalization means you're sort of leaving it in a legal gray area, like you can't be locked up for selling it or using it. I go a step further where, again, it can be legal, it can be regulated, it can be commercialized where people can sell magic mushrooms through a particular company and have different brands and different flavors or whatever the hell. Yes, I would make it part of the economy, and I would make it a job, a way to create jobs as well. And now I think that one of the things we should do is levy a tax, and the tax money goes towards rehabilitation efforts. So I would have universal rehab as part of a Medicare for all system in my ideal system. So if people do have a problem, they can go and get that taken care of and get it taken care of for free. But, I think that you shouldn't take away these things from the 80% who can use them responsibly because 20% can't. And that roughly is the number based on Dr. Carl Hart's research, and he's an expert on this stuff. So legalize drugs, tax drugs, regulate drugs. I would make sure that the, crocodile or fentanyl or the most dangerous substances bath salts, certain kinds of bath salts, that cannot be legalized. But softer versions of uppers or downers or hallucinogenics, psychedelics, they...
So I want to get your reaction. I don't have to play the whole clip. I think you get the gist of that idea. Your reaction.
So, you know, he mentioned the safest drugs, and I kept hearing that, and I think it's a really, I think that we need to do a lot more on education for things like that, because people don't understand that some people can take drugs and they are safe for them, and some people just can't. They're allergic, they have bad reactions, you know, things like that. So even something as gentle or as holistic as marijuana could have adverse effects on us. So now we're talking about things that people can die from. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of these things. He mentioned fentanyl. Fentanyl's already on the streets. It's all over the place. I mean, people are dying from exposure to it on a regular basis. So I focus on marijuana specifically because we're just so far behind in that regard in this state. And I just think that if we had, I don't know, even 2 years of, you know, legal recreational marijuana, we're not trying to tax people for growing. Like, we just don't, it could be your crop. You know what I'm saying? That's your thing. You want to do, mm-hmm. That's fine. I want to get more people out of jail who have been arrested for something so petty as marijuana. So I just focus on that specifically because I think that that's, living in Texas and having a lot of family and friends here, you know, that's just been one of the biggest drags for people that live here is, you know, why is that not legal? Why are people so worried about getting arrested for that, or, you know, not having access to something that they could use that could substitute one of their pharmaceuticals? So we just want to try and foster the kind of environment for people where they're able to make decisions for themselves and they're able to make holistic approaches to things that benefit them.
You think we can start with marijuana, and that's the first step, essentially, to any of this?
Yeah, so that's my focus. I think with all of the other plans that we have, my hope would be drug usage would go down because people would be struggling as much. Ideally, that would pay for itself because people are going into the hospital, they're getting sick, they're going into recovery, they're going into rehab. And a lot of it, you know, addiction is a serious illness that people don't find enough support for usually. But also, excuse me, where was I? Yeah, a lot of it stems from these systemic problems. You know, they can't pay their bills, they're stressed about a job, they don't have, you know, health insurance, and all of those deep seated problems are affecting our society in a bad way. So I want to alleviate some of the root causes of drug abuse.
I get that. I just want to give you a little counter there. I think that the reason why that take at some point makes sense is because it deals with a lot of the issues. We tried to make alcohol illegal. You saw what happened with that. There was the prohibition. There was an entire party started around alcohol. There was underground alcohol. You're never going to stop 100% stop drug usage ever. It's never going to be 100% stop. But if you go to a system eventually where it becomes legal, where it becomes normalized, it's going to be done less. And if you have the education, and when things are out in the open, you know, okay, if I take this dosage, it might kill me. But if I take this dosage, I'll be okay. And then people know this because you're allowed to do that research, and it's out in the open. And it becomes normalized. My biggest thing is France. France lets kids start drinking alcohol at 10 years old. They have, it sounds crazy, right? But they have an extremely low alcoholic rate because it's become normalized and it's become part of their society. The way the U.S. treats alcohol or anything else, they treat it like it's this big, scary thing, and everybody wants it more.
true. You make these things taboo, then they seem more interesting for people, and that is a bit of that is very sad. I know in Texas, a lot of people apparently it's perfectly legal to give your children alcohol, like in like a sip or a drink or something like that. Most police officers won't, or you won't get arrested for something like that. So it is a bit normalized, in this state, but I think there is a problem where we're not addressing the root causes of these addictions and these habits that are very detrimental to people. And I just think that we need to focus better on healthcare in general.
Well, of course. And my last point on it is, and I agree with you on that, is when you make it legal, then legitimate companies are selling it, and it's not getting cut on the street with all these horrible things. And it's also safer in that regard, because now everybody has to, if you want it, you have to turn to the street, and you have no idea what's in that.
That's true.
So, but I do like that you're focused on the marijuana. I don't think the country is ready for a conversation yet on the others. But I do think that we've broken through on the marijuana issue, where a lot of people like, you know what, I'll talk about that one.
Right. Yeah. Even in a place as conservative as Texas, people are very open to that idea. So I think it's a good indicator that people are ready for that change. I would add that hopefully we would offer some sort of public awareness campaigns where we offer, drug testing kits and things like that, where, people, like we've got methadone clinics for heroin addicts, and that keeps people, from getting really severe sickness from using dirty needles and things like that. And, it was met with a little bit of pushback, but after it started being a bit of a benefit to less people getting sick, I think people kind of accepted it, that it's better for people. It helps in the long run. It doesn't sound great, it doesn't sound ideal. You don't want people to be addicted to heroin. However, the situation is we have a lot of people that are, and they still need help. And we should have a society of compassion that offers help to people who need it.
Absolutely. And our current president is actually responsible for a lot of the issues with the drug war. He wrote the crime bill, and he perpetuated the drug war.
Oh, I'm not a fan of Joe Biden. So
No.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with his crime bill and his history. His very, very colorful or aggressive history. So it's a challenge, I don't think that we have the right leadership to meet this moment. We're at a time where things are changing rapidly, and we've seen unprecedented amounts of human suffering and loss of life in this country. And it should be a wake-up call, for other people to demand better and demand more for themselves, because they deserve more. We're not just human stock. We're individuals. We're supposed to have rights and freedoms. We're lacking in that department.
Oh, absolutely. And I think a lot of people voted for Biden out of fear and it was never about Biden or Trump. It was about not having Trump. And you could have put a ham sandwich as the Democratic nominee, and everyone would have voted for the ham sandwich.
Oh, God, yeah. That vote blue, no matter who stuff, really, I was like, do you know what you're saying? Is that, you're comfortable with that?
Exactly.
I don't know. I try not to laugh at it because this is real. We're all kind of living through this. But oh my God, it's hard to take that seriously. Like, it's better. It really it doesn't matter. So why even bother voting if it doesn't matter?
Exactly. I have a lot of friends. I was a Sanders supporter, and I'm like, the second that he lost the primary, I'm like, that's it. And I would have made some compromise. I wasn't a big I would have voted for some of the other lefty candidates. I would have been like, it's a compromise. But when I saw Joe Biden, Kamala Harris ticket, I'm like, that's not a compromise. That's me giving up every single one of my principles and not winning on any of my issues at all. And that's not acceptable. So,
yeah, no, he's center right, if anything,
yeah.
and whole party is moving in the opposite direction.
Exactly. They did a segment the other day where they said, I believe it's the Prime Minister of Germany who is considered conservative. Someone did a segment. She's considered conservative. I think it's the Prime Minister. They
Merkel?
said, what?
Is it Angela Merkel?
Angela Merkel. She's a conservative, but guess what? She's to the left of Bernie Sanders, which is a surprise to me. And she's called a conservative, which just shows the left flank in our country is not so radical. When someone is... It's moderate. The left is moderate in America on the world stage. And the right in America is so far to the right because the Overton window is so far. Our conservatives make other conservatives look liberal and progressive.
Yeah, I mean, we on the left aren't radical enough, and yet on the far right, they're radicalized to a point of when they're mobile or they have a cause, I mean, you should be concerned because they're so far right and radicalized with such propaganda that that they have this like cult mentality, and it's very concerning, especially being a woman of color living in this state. I mean, there's just been a lot of bad things that have happened that our administration keeps talking about healing the nation. It's like, you don't even want to talk about the problems. You don't want to bring that up or address them,
That's a slogan. That's a slogan. I don't know what that means. That's something Joe Biden started saying on the campaign trail. It's a slogan. It's ridiculous, and it doesn't mean anything. It's a meaningless slogan. It's like when Hillary Clinton kept saying, well, because she was, I'm with her or whatever else. These are all slogans that people come up with.
I know. There's big money to be made with the Democratic establishment. Meanwhile, Greens and Independents, especially Greens, everybody is working full time, or we don't even have anything near the financial support that these other people do, and it's such a shame to me that they almost behave beholden to the Democratic establishment. And the Democratic establishment acts like they are owed people's votes, and they act like people owe them something when it's the people who are helping pay them their salaries and getting them into office, and they're still taking corporate donors' concerns over the voters, and it's incredibly painful to see, and it just feels like such a shame. We could be so inspiring as a state to other people if we really acted on those things, those beliefs that we hold so dear,
Our wonderful leaders, like
Pelosi. How do you feel when you see her? Because I don't.
Very angry.
I'm irritated. Like, go away already. You've been here for so long. And you don't care about people. She was talking about a public option back in 93? I mean, this absolutely no regard for people suffering.
She was talking about single payer at one point when she first got into Congress. So
I mean, it was decades ago. Come on. And what have we got?
Don't you want to see her freezers? $30,000 freezers?
No, I don't. I don't. I work at a hospital, so freezers have multiple uses. Okay.
Yeah, and her $15 a month ice cream subscription or whatever that shit is.
Or the Green New Deal or whatever. Isn't she
the Green New Deal or whatever. Yes, that was I don't like the Green New Deal. And
and her district suffered a lot of damage from the wildfires. She just can't be bothered to actually care.
No.
I don't understand how this sickness of such wealth has you behaving and living like you were outside or untouched by the rest of the world. And I mean, it's some sort of like egotistical sickness that makes you think that a fire on one end of the country doesn't matter to somebody on the other end of the country. We're all here. Like, we're all, you know, we all depend on the Amazon for our air, like our oxygen. It's just insane. It's the lack of humanity in these people.
Exactly. Now, I've even been disappointed with the left flank of the Democratic Party as of late. They haven't been doing their jobs.
Yeah, I think I got a text message about a town hall or something that Bernie and AOC are going to do, and I'm just like, don't even talk to me. I mean, I'm here, and you guys had all these talking points that you used over and over and over again, and every time we get even close to considering the real threats and the real suffering of the people in this country, they say, oh, we're asking for too much.
Yeah,
or we can't.
I got a wonderful email yesterday asking me to donate to the Squad Victory Fund because they're very close to a victory. It was very unspecific nonsense, and it was like, we're very close to a victory. We just need your help. Donate this amount of money or this amount of money. I'm like, what victory?
You know, I think I'm probably going to be the only candidate in this entire state advocating for direct action and mutual aid. I mean, they come anytime there's a disaster. It's almost how the Red Cross will go to Haiti and not actually build houses and things like that. This is the effectiveness of the Democratic Party with the money that you give them. They're just doing a show. They're just playing politics of the game, and your life is mixed up in it, and they don't have money for it.
And then you have AOC. When you give her money, she gave like a few $1,000s to corporate Democrats. What are you doing?
Oh, we know what she's doing. She's trying to be the next Mama Bear Pelosi. I mean, her behavior is indicative of a career politician, and it's sad. You know, you went from protesting Nancy Pelosi's office, and yet you just want that seat yourself. I mean, it's a little disgusting.
It is. And you know what? They could have they had an opportunity. You remember the force the vote thing? I don't know if you remember that.
I do. I remember.
I wanted more. I learned about this later. There was another movement during force the vote just called Replace Pelosi. Forget forcing the vote on Medicare for all. Just get rid of Pelosi and be done with her. So the idea behind this was you need six people to stand up and just block her round after round until she surrenders and withdraws. And then you submit a list and say, going forward, we will vote for this one, this one, this one, or this one. It's up to you. You can put these people up, whoever wants to step up, but we're not voting for any of these people. They didn't have the courage to do anything like that, but they could have.
I mean, that is very true and accurate. The lack of courage is prevalent in our leadership on both sides. Yes. Probably not as blatant and bigoted as on the right, but you know, it's still there. A coward. You know, regardless of what color you are, your behavior is not consistent with your values that you preach. You're an ineffective leader.
Exactly. So, no, my thing on that was, if you're going to go for it, don't ask for one thing. Just get rid of her.
Yeah, I think she would be replaced. And hopefully, I mean, unfortunately, anybody that's come close to challenging her is immediately smeared and you know, I was on a call and Saeed Buttar was on it. We were talking about general strikes and unions and you know, just people power, and he seemed a very kind, receptive, respectful individual, and his campaign went to shit so fast in such a short period of time over an allegation that was neither ever confirmed or denied, but it was enough to stop him, you know. from getting kind of votes that he needed to really challenge her. So it's you know, I think if you are a threat, you really don't have a prayer.
Exactly. And they seem to neutralize these people pretty quickly once they get into office. They defang them very quickly.
Yeah, I agree.
So how many other candidates are in this race? How many candidates total?
So let's see. I think there are 3 Republican or Republican lights running. And we have not. I had heard there was one Democratic nominee, but I haven't really seen if she's going forward. I haven't heard anything from the Democratic Party. Of course, there's Beto O'Rourke, who obviously is toying with the idea of running. I'm sure he's going to secure a couple of good $1 million before he decides yes or no if it's worth his time to run. And then I think Matthew McConaughey was at some point interested, but I think he's pulled out of the race. So the only people I know for certain are 3 Republicans.
What about any Libertarians or Socialist Party or any other parties?
None from the Socialist Party that I've heard of, and I try to keep up with them. They don't have ballot access. Green Party does have ballot access. I will be on the ballot, but I don't know if we have an independent candidate yet. Haven't seen anybody. There might be somebody listed. I haven't noticed.
You said no Libertarian either.
Not that I'm aware of, but again, I could have missed that. So
don't know. Yep. I mean, is there a deadline for people to declare?
Yes, there's a filing deadline coming up.
So very soon you'll know who all the candidates are.
Yes, hopefully soon we'll know everybody who's going to be in the race. You know, I know that as a Green candidate, I have to work harder than everybody else to get anybody's attention, and I know that I have to try to be perfect, but I'm not. I'm a human being, and I'm not a perfect person, and I'm not going to try and gloss myself over to garner people's favor. I just want them to know that there's somebody running who respects them. I don't care how you voted in the past. I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care what your history is. I believe that you deserve human rights. You should have clean water. You should have living wages. You should have health care, among many other things. And I might be the only person willing to say that.
Absolutely. Do you guys have any debates coming up that they're probably going to try to exclude you from?
Yeah, since I'm probably going to be excluded, I don't know, but it would be fun to go protest outside and cause a ruckus. I do enjoy that. Absolutely.
So there was, I'm sure you heard about what happened in Georgia with their third-party gubernatorial candidate, right?
No, please enlighten me.
So they have a new party called the Liberation Party. This woman, Princess Blanding, was running, and here's the clip right here. She was invited to the debate, not to participate, to sit in the audience.
Oh my God. Okay, yes, I did watch that clip. I remember, and they were like they kicked her out of the building. They're like, "You're not gonna win." Is that the same clip?
So here's it.
We might get to the wide area where they cause these continuously rising crimes in our neighborhood. It is absolutely ridiculous, and I am the only candidate that represents the fight clearly for the working class. And that's the new spirit at the end of it, and you can get out of my street. Thank you. You can get out of my street.
She's on the ballot.
We will end the ballot pipeline. I will defend our trans students. You are touching me, and you might want to get up off of me. Thank you. You can call me what you want, but the reality of it is, I'm educated, and I have to travel from Middle Peninsula all the way up to Alexandria because people are not.
I love it. I love her.
Absolutely. And that was amazing. And she didn't get a press story until after she did that. until after that happened. Nobody wanted to cover her, and then they put, I believe, some local papers and some local stations had to cover her after that. And they took her statement outside.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it takes to actually fight for the working class, you know?
Definitely. Now, one of the hosts on our network is also green. You may be familiar with her. She's running in New Jersey for governor. Her name is Madeline Hoffman.
Yes.
So,
fan of Madeline's. She's a good friend.
Yeah. So her debate, they require 420,000 or $490,000 to get. It's not based on polling. You could poll at 90%, but if you didn't raise $490,000, you can't come inside, even if you're polling at 90%.
Yeah, that's insane. I just they're really trying to crush the poor and working class, you know, from having any real options that are representative of their needs, you know, and it's very obvious, you know. The people who have that kind of money don't have the people's best interests in mind. Usually, I mean, that's why we're green, so we can say, well, we don't take corporate funding, at least. I don't owe my, you know, I'm not speaking on behalf of the corporation. You know, I'm speaking on behalf of the needs of the people. That's what matters most. Definitely.
The last time we had a third-party governor was 1999, and that was Jesse Ventura. And the only reason he was elected was because they let him into the debate.
Wow. That's great. I remember the Jesse Ventura fever too during the election last year. You know, he seems to be a charismatic, well-informed individual. You know, and I would hope that I could get some attention. And I'm willing to do a lot of different things to get that attention, while still being true to what we stand for, you know, and what we do.
So when will you be going on CNN?
Oh, well, I don't know who I have to call what to get there. If you have any advice for me, let me know. Because, I'd love to be on CNN. I don't know whose house I have to post up outside for that kind of coverage.
Okay, I'll tell you exactly how to get on CNN. You have to find a reporter who doesn't care about being blacklisted from talking to the Democrats and the Republicans, and then they will do an interview with you.
Are those such reporters just within the indie circuit?
Yeah.
Right?
Except I don't have to follow those rules. I can talk to the Democrats and the Republicans without worrying about being blacklisted by talking to you, because CNN. I don't work for CNN.
Right. Yeah. And that's all the difference right there. You know.
Exactly. If they do an interview with you, then they'll lose access to Beto O'Rourke if he runs, and they'll give that interview to somebody else.
Yeah, I could do with seeing less of him. If I'm being honest, you know, he's just it's really odd. There's a big fever around him, you know, and I think if you were paying attention to his habits and his behavior, you'd be less inclined to give that man your money, your time, and energy.
I think I'm one of the few people who don't live in Texas who realize he's not a progressive either. A lot of people who don't live in Texas think, oh, he's a progressive.
Right.
Or at least a progressive Democrat, which I don't think he is either.
I mean, progressive for the Democratic establishment's plans, you know.
I would even consider him to the right of the establishment progressives like Warren. I would even consider him to the right of people like that, honestly.
Yeah, I think there are some
Oh. My window is
I heard that too. I was like, whose window is that? Yeah, so I think there's been some articles out there where he has been quoted as just saying, you know, oh, I believe a woman has a right to choose, but not, you know, being very clear on what that means, and has had a history of taking money from, you know, the oil and gas industry too. And
progressive on the social issues because it's easier that way. The first thing, not that it's not important, but the first thing people will break on, like these big corporations, when there was the BLM protest, that's the first thing they broke on. They didn't do anything with economics. They broke on this one because it's easy to break on because they don't lose anything from doing it.
Right. And they're not invested in it either. So
exactly. So I want to ask you, there's this new third party being started by this person who I consider to be kind of a clown. So I'm going to bring, so I wouldn't even call it a third party. So Andrew Yang, who everybody used to think was a progressive, but he's kind of been pretty much unmasked at this point, is starting a third party.
This is Forward Party.
Yes, this is from Dave Weigel, who's also a corporatist. He says, these are the 6 planks of the Forward Party: ranked choice voting and open primaries, fact-based governance, human-centered capitalism, effective and modern government, UBI, grace and tolerance. And they're not running candidates. They're endorsing Democrats and Republicans who will agree to those 6 planks, and they're calling themselves a third party. It seems more like
so that's a smart financial decision on their end. I see that. I love the human-centered capitalism bullet point. I think anybody who even tries to say they care about human suffering or the exploitation of the global South or racism or white supremacy in this country would address the fact that capitalism, along with colonialism, is a major factor in why we are in the state that we are in today. I mean, you can't just make exploitation sound nicer. You have to stop exploitation. You have to be, you can't say, oh, well, like when they had all those memes going around with Biden, because he's always voted for war. He's always been a war hawk and spent billions, trillions of dollars on the industry. I mean, so now that he's elected as a Democratic president, so just because the bombs are rainbow colored or pink, they're still bombs. Doesn't matter. You know what I mean? We're still funding this more than we're funding any other social benefits to the people that live in this country. So
absolutely.
I just can't. I can't focus on that for too long and think about it for very long, because it's just this hypocrisy is maddening.
Out.
And so for Andrew Yang's Forward Party, I don't want to discredit the man because I don't know him and I don't know what his plans are. You know what I mean? It seems very incoherent to me.
Well, he's an incoherent type of person. He ran for mayor here in New York City. First of all, he didn't have all of his platform ready on his website, and he put things out with, like, for example, he put out police reform, platform piece pending underneath, and all these things. He put out like 30 different things, pending. And then his UBI policy changed every other week. First, it was every month and not litmus tested. Then it was litmus tested. Then it was twice a year. Then it was every other year. And then it was this. And then it was that. It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
Sounds pretty hard to keep up with, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. I mean, our previous president was elected by being able to have a good grift, good gimmick going. I know a lot of people actually that happily voted for Trump. That I don't I still respect them as people, even though they voted for somebody like that. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that it means that they're bad people. I just think it means, you're a little bit gullible. Like, none of us are immune to propaganda. And I think that you have to make a conscious effort to not consume that. And a lot of people don't seem to have time or energy to do that. So, a real leader would try their best to inform people and help them make educated decisions. But, you know, there's too much money to be made. So they exploit us.
So what are you, last few things I want to ask you, what are your feelings on Julian Assange?
Yeah, I think what's happened to that man is insane and wrong. And he, you know, I think a lot of people want to bring up his history and just try to paint him in a light that's unfavorable, just to discredit his work. And the truth of the matter is he did us all a service, you know, and was punished for revealing the truth. And that is a big indicator of what our country prioritizes. They don't want us to know the truth. They want us to be afraid to tell the truth. And I think he should be freed. Along with Leonard Peltier, that man has been in prison for far too long. I cannot believe that he's still locked up to this day. I just always think of him too when people ask me about Julian Assange, because he doesn't get enough, you know, attention.
I'm sure. So, where can people find out more, and where can people donate?
We have a donor box website page up. It is on our website, DelilahForTexas.com. There are some people. We have an email, DelilahForTexas@gmail.com, and you know, we're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Just we're around.
What about MySpace?
Oh, do you remember MySpace?
Yes.
I'm sorry. No, we don't have MySpace.
Yeah,
We would like to start a TikTok, but you know, we don't have enough hands right now. So we would love more volunteers and please, dear God, more donations so that we can pay all of our filing fees.
All right. Are you on Friendster and High Five?
No, you're making me feel really old though, because I don't even know what those are.
They came out after MySpace, but
no, I don't. No, sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, MySpace is actually back and being used for local bands.
I didn't know. Oh my God.
Local bands. And the funny story, when Trump was banned from every other platform, he tried to register as a band on MySpace called Trump and the Magas. And MySpace traced the IP to the White House and banned him off of MySpace. Which is really funny. Trump and the Magas got me when I read that article.
Oh, if you have that article, can you send it to me? Because I need a good, laughter is good for the soul. So if you don't mind. Oh, it's hilarious. I'm happy to know that.
I gotta find that article. That's a ridiculous article.
Thank you for sharing that with me. I needed a good laugh. I love it. I mean, maybe if I started a band, I would go on MySpace.
Yeah.
Not gonna promise it'll be any good, but we'll try.
Yes. I'll send you that article when we get off the air. So everybody check out Delilah, and I just want to advertise this one more time. So I gotta advertise my own. So everyone, on the Tuesday, October 26th at 12 p.m., I will be leading the Netflix smear of Julian Assange protest, because Netflix has decided to release a documentary 3 days before his next hearing. So everyone go ahead and check that out.
Yeah, I will.
Okay. Okay. So I just want to ask you a question, if you could stay on after for a second.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Well, thank you for having me on. It's good talking.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.